بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين. Inshallah, today is the last class. We will finish the last few types of ahadith that are mentioned in this specific text, and then we will end for the last 10 nights of Ramadan. He says, Rahimahullah, متفق لفظا وخطا متفق وضده فيما ذكرنا المفترق. المتفق والمفترق may appear to be two types of hadith, but they're actually one. It's one type of hadith called al-muttafiq wal-muftariq, which means ittifaq is to agree or to be in congruence, as he chooses to translate it, the translator. And muftariq is to be different, instead of to agree or to be incongruent. There are certain hadith narrators who may share names. They also share father names. They also may share kunyas, such as Abu Fulan. And so when narrating from them, it may seem as if they are the same person. And so he says, مُتَّفِق لَفْظًا وَخَطًّا. So the lafz, the pronunciation, and the khat, the way it is written, is the same. But however, in reality, it's a different person. And so it's muttafiq, and it's also muftariq. It's muttafiq in the wording and in the written form, and it's muftariq, it's different in the reality of the person. So it's one type of hadith. It's a type of hadith that has a narrator that has these two qualities, muttafiq in similar in name, but different in the person. And this is important to know because usually when we have such a case, there's going to be someone who is weak and someone who is strong. So some of the famous examples is a hadith narrator by the name of Khalil ibn Ahmad. In reality, there's 6 different people called Khalil ibn Ahmad. They're not all reliable narrators. Some of them are unreliable, and so it is necessary for the hadith translator to know who it is. Usually, we will be able to know this either through the city he lived in. So if we see that he's narrating, so the person above in the chain is from Kufa, and this specific Khalil ibn Ahmad is in Kufa, whereas the other one is in Egypt, for example. This is one of the ways in which we can know it. Similarly, we know which person was a student of who and a teacher of who, and so we can figure it out based on, stuff like that, such as who they're narrating from and who they're narrating to. Sometimes both of these people can be narrating from the same person. They can have the same teacher. Another way to find out would be to look at all the different students. Some of these students may have said Khalil ibn Ahmad. Some of the other students narrating the same hadith may have specified. So the hadith collector might have to collect all the different chains of narration, and one of them only, one of the narrators may have specified who it is, while the others haven't. So this is something important to know. Similarly, in Maliki fiqh, we have an issue. We have a famous scholar, Abu al-Walid Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Rushd al-Qurtubi al-Maliki Qadi al-Jama'ah, and we have his grandson, who is also Abu al-Walid Ahmad ibn Rushd al-Qurtubi al-Maliki Qadi al-Jama'ah. So they both have the same name, the same father's name, the same family's name, the same kunya. They both have the same position, Qadi al-Jama'ah, and they're both from the same city, Qurtuba. And so it could pose a challenge to figure out who's who. And so usually when you see a book by either one of these two, you'll see it written down Ibn Rushd al-Jad, Ibn Rushd the grandfather, or Ibn Rushd the grandson, al-Hafid. But in other cases, such as the one I just mentioned, Khalil ibn Ahmad, there's no grandfather, there's no relationship. So you can't just say grandfather. You'd have to specify, Khalil ibn Ahmad, the student of so-and-so. Similarly, if you read from the majority of hadith collections, there's a lot of repeated names of famous people, such as Sufyan, right? You have two famous Sufyans, Sufyan al-Thawri and Sufyan ibn Uyayna. Both of them hadith giants, and sometimes you'll read a chain of narration and it just says An Sufyan. It won't say who. But you'll be able to know because one of them was in Mecca and the other one was in Iraq. So you can see from the teachers who he's narrating from, you can find out who he is. Similarly, Az-Zuhri, one of the famous shuyukh, one of the famous tabi'een, Shihab Az-Zuhri. In Medina, you have many people from the Bani Zuhra clan, so they're all called Az-Zuhri. And so oftentimes it can confuse you which Zuhri you're narrating from. And so this is something you'll be able to differentiate by reading just many hadith and getting used to the chains of narrations that are repeated and getting used to the teacher-student relationships of the muhaddithin. You'll be able to figure out who's who. And that is al-muttafiq wal-muftariq. And as we said, it is one type of hadith, even though it seems to be two based off the translation. مؤتلف متفق الخط فقط وضده مختلف فاخشى الغلط. This is no longer in the Sanad. This is in the text. You may have a hadith that when it's written down, it appears to be it's just one form of writing it down. However, when you read it, there could be two different readings. Sometimes you'll have one hadith transmitter who may be used to writing the hadith down. He will accidentally, switch a similar letter. He'll switch, for example, a ha and a kha because they're written down the same way, or a ba and a noon. One of the famous examples of this is the hadith something to the meaning of من قال هلك الناس فهو أهلكهم. It's written down أهلكهم, but it can be read two ways, أهلكهم وأهلكهم. So, and it has two meanings. It means whoever has said that the people have gone astray, if he says وهو أهلكهم, it means he is the most astray of them. And then another reading, if you change the haraka, وهو أهلكهم, it means he is the reason that they have gone astray. So it's two different meanings, and it's written down the same way. Now, the difference in why these two narrations exist, it could be because somebody wrote it down and pronounced it differently by accident. It could also be someone just was confused when he was saying it and pronounced it incorrectly, and so it was written down incorrectly. And which one is incorrect, it doesn't make a difference. Regardless, both transmissions of this hadith carry a true meaning, as we know from other hadith which share both meanings. So it's not as if it's a mistake which has grave consequences. And usually these types of mistakes would be found in the science of ilal, which we discussed at length before. So that is mu'talif. It agrees only in script, but not in pronunciation. And when we say script, as you can infer from what the examples I've given, when we talk about the harakas and the tashkil and the dots and the stuff like that, that's not what we mean when we say script. When we say script, we mean the skeleton of the Arabic letters without the dots and the tashkil, because back then not all even though the tashkil had begun to exist to some extent, not all people used them. So it was a 50-50 chance of who wrote with tashkil and who didn't. وضده مختلف فاخشى الغلط. The mukhtalif hadith is two types of hadith which appear to be contradictory. And this is, the main focus of the fuqaha and the usuliyin. It's their job to see a hadith which appear to be different in meaning. They appear to be mutually exclusive, and their job is to find out why this is the case. Either they say that this is general, this is specific, this is abrogated, and this is not abrogated. This is, this is mutlaq, this is muqayyad, this is restrained, this is unrestrained. This is for this time, this is for another time. This is metaphorical, this is literal. So there's a lot of different ways. And this is, again, the primary focus of the field of usul al-fiqh. And so how we can take these ahadith, which appear to be contradictory, and form um, a, uh, a congruent, realistic tasawwur, an image of fiqh. We can actually form a fiqh opinion by taking one hadith and saying this is what it means, and this other hadith, which appears to be contradictory, it means something else. Again, mostly this is for the books of fiqh and usul fiqh. Some muhaddithin have written books about this topic, hadith books about this topic, such as al-Tahawi, the famous early Hanafi. He has two books, Sharh Mushkil al-Athar and Sharh Ma'ani al-Athar, in which he gathers all the hadith collections in their asanid. And not all the hadith collections, but it is a hadith collection just as any other. So Sharh Ma'ani al-Athar is a book just like at-Tirmidhi, just like Abu Dawood. It's a hadith collection with its own asanid to al-Tahawi, and he adds his commentary. He says this hadith is abrogated, this is not. So this is one of the instances in which we can find this in a hadith book. Otherwise, these types of things are usually reserved for the books of fiqh and the evidences of fiqh. And that is the mukhtalif hadith. Imam Ibn Khuzaymah, obviously the famous Shafi'i, is also specialized in this, just as al-Tahawi was. And it's narrated from Ibn Khuzaymah that he said, anyone who thinks there's two ahadith that are contradictory, just bring them to me. Whether or not his opinion is the most accurate, obviously fiqh opinions are subjective. They fall under subjective standards because fiqh opinions are a matter of ijtihad. They're not a matter of clear cut. So you bring two hadiths, which the very same two hadiths which appear to be different. You bring them to one imam. He's gonna do jama', which is what we say in usul fiqh. It's to combine these two evidences into one thing. One of them is going to do it in a different way than the other. Whether one of them is going to say this is abrogated, this is not. The other one could say, for example, I reject this sanad, but I accept this sanad. So it's a subjective science. So yeah, it's the mukhtalif hadith is the origin of all fiqh differences, or not all fiqh differences, but the vast majority of them. The next hadith is al-Munkar. والمنكر الفرد به راو غدا تعديله لا يحمل التفرد. The munkar hadith, the rejected hadith. There's two types of munkar hadith, and the author mentions one. So first, let's go over the definition that he chooses. The munkar hadith is the one in which a specific narrator can be accepted in hadith. However, it will fall into question if he is the sole narrator, if he's the only narrator of the hadith. And a lot of narrators are like this. So if it's a gharib hadith, he's the only person who, narrates this, then it's munkar, it's rejected, because it's not strong enough when he is the only narrator. However, if another person is narrating something similar enough, then his hadith is accepted. And so, again, this is common. There are many narrators that are accepted, like you'll find them being accepted in Sahih Muslim as narrators. However, the ahadith in which they accept in Sahih Muslim are the ahadith in which there are other people to back them up. However, the ahadith in which these people are sole narrators, you won't find them in the Sahih, you'll find them outside. So this is a munkar hadith. And this doesn't always have to do with their reliability in terms of uprightness. This is more likely and more usually something to do with their memory. So they're trustworthy and truthful. However, their memory is sometimes called into question. And so that's why you would need someone else to back it up, just in case. because you don't know when they're being, uh, when they're being, when their memory is being, whether it's faulty in this hadith or not. You'd only be able to know if somebody else is affirming the same hadith. This is one type of munkar hadith. The second type of munkar hadith is very similar to ash-shadh, the anomalous hadith, which we discussed before many times. So we discussed that. Let me annotate this. We discussed that if one person, or sorry, you have, let's say, 3 reliable narrators narrating one thing, and then you have a 4th reliable narrator narrating something different. Again, these are all reliable, but the 4th one is narrating something that's mutually exclusive. We say this is shadh, this hadith is anomalous, and then this is what is accepted. We call it what is ma'ruf, what is known. This is when they are all accepted, when they're all sahih narrators. What if this 4th one is unreliable? So if they're all reliable and he's being different, they're all reliable and he's being different, then it's called shadh, anomalous. If these are reliable and he's being different, then it is even lower. And we call it munkar. It's rejected completely. So usually when you have a da'if narrator, you have a weak narrator, and he's narrating something, then it's not usually accepted, right? Imagine that same weak narrator is not only narrating something that is weak, he's also narrating something that is mutually exclusive with something that is known by sahih transmitters. So it's not only weak, it becomes even lower, because it's not just weak in itself, it's weak in relativity to the other authentic hadith which are known. So it becomes munkar, it becomes rejected. And that is the second definition of munkar. And the last 2 types of hadith. The first one is the matruk. Matruk is discarded or left, متروكه ما واحد به انفرد وأجمعون لضعفه فهو كرد. A matruk narrator is one who is known for lying, that he is just discarded. He's not, the hadith aren't even looked at. And this is usually when the people are known for lying in general. So someone who is just known as a liar, you will ask a hadith biographer about him, you'll say, okay, this person is matruk. He's known for lying, he's left, he's discarded. His hadith is as if it's not there. And this is the second. وَأَجْمَعُوا لِضَعْفِهِ فَهُوَ كَرَدْ. So his weakness is agreed upon, so the hadith is already rejected, even if he hasn't narrated a hadith. So the word matruk, it's referring to the transmitter, not the hadith. So his hadith are already rejected because the narrator is disregarded, he's discarded and left, because he's known for being a liar. And there's many people like this. There's entire books of just biographers of, you'll have some books like At-Tarikh al-Kabir by al-Bayquniyya, or Siyar A'lam al-Nubala by al-Dhahabi, in which they just gather biographies of people in general. And then you have biography books which are specifically for reliable people, such as Al-Thiqat by Ibn Habban, or you'll have other books just for people like this, just for people who are completely disregarded. And there'll be named stuff like Al-Matrukin, Al-Majruhin, Al-Du'afa min al-Rijal. Many books along these lines exist. Sometimes these books of biographies, you'll find they'll have some ahadith examples in them. Once I saw a Shia try to prove his, their innovative beliefs using a hadith, which he claims is in Sunni books. And then when you look at his source, he's narrating it from a book called Al-Du'afa min al-Rijal. So he's narrating it from a book in which everything, all the narrators in them are agreed upon to be disregarded narrators and discarded narrators because of their lies. So just because somebody says this is in a Sunni book, it doesn't mean it's accepted in a Sunni book. It could be many things. Even, by the way, if it's narrated in something like a Tirmidhi or Tarikh al-Tabari, it could also be disregarded. Just because something is in a Sunni book, it doesn't mean it is accepted by Sunni standards. Because not all books are meant to only include authentic hadiths. Some, by the own admission of their authors, include fabricated hadith. And this could be for many reasons. Sometimes it's just to draw attention towards these fabricated hadith, sometimes for pointing towards bits of information. There's many reasons. But this is what the matruk hadith is. And the lowest of them, وَالْكَذِبُ الْمُخْتَلَقُ الْمَصْنُوعُ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ فَذَلِكَ الْمَوْضُوعُ. The mawdu' hadith, the fabricated hadith. And mawdu' in Arabic comes from wada', which means to place. You know, وضعت الكتاب على الطاولة. I placed the book on the table. And that's where the word mawdu' comes from. It's because it's not from the sunnah. It's someone is putting it in the sunnah. Someone is putting it in the hadith books or in the narration of hadith. So it's mawdu', it's placed there. It's not meant to be there. And mawdu' is not, some people think any weak hadith is a fabricated hadith. That's not true. A weak hadith just means that we don't really know. We can't say this is strong, so we just don't use it as evidence. No, a fabricated hadith is one which we know is fabricated. We know it's mawdu'. We know this specific hadith was purposely a lie. And there's many ways to know when a hadith is mawdu'. Not to give an exhaustive list of ways to know. Sometimes it's in clear contradiction to the Quran, clear contradiction to the clear cuts of aqidah. And those are very few because people know you won't get away from them. You'll get away with them because people know the clear cuts of religion. Sometimes you'll find a hadith which have excessive praise of a certain thing that is known to be not true, such as you'll find a hadith that says, for example, the person who reads Qul Huwallahu Ahad one time, then it's haram for him to enter the hellfire, or something like that. It's excessive, it's ridiculous, excessive praise of a certain surah, of a certain form of dhikr, of a certain sahabi. Sometimes even you'll find excessive, and the Shia are known for this, for making up excessive virtues of Ali radiallahu anhu. But there's also some from the people who claim to be of the Sunnah, from the ignorant people, they would make up things about Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhuma, excessive praise, ridiculous praise. Another thing is, for example, when it is known to, it's in clear contradiction of reality. So you guys know the famous hadith, Habbatu Sawda fiha shifa'un kulli da'. So the black seed, in it there is healing, and there's a cure for any disease. You'll have a similar hadith in which al-Badhinjan fihi shifa'un kulli da'. Eggplant, in it there is healing from every disease, and this is it's just known to not be true. So it's very clear fabrication. Sometimes you'll also have a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ is telling you to do something which is known to be haram. So he is, for example, there's one hadith the Shia claim in which he told the Sahabas that Ali radiallahu anhu is his successor, and then he told them to not tell anyone. And obviously this is in clear contradiction to the message of the Prophet ﷺ, in which he is not allowed to hide anything from the religion. So he's not allowed to order anyone to hide something which is from the religion. And the Shia claim that it is a core part of the religion to know that Ali is the successor, and so it would make no sense for the Prophet ﷺ to ask him to hide a core part of the religion. Uh, Similarly, hiding something that is from the halal and the haram will be impermissible. So anything that implies such a thing from the Prophet ﷺ is it's a clear-cut fabrication. And there are many other ways to know when a hadith is mawdu'. You'll find exhaustive lists about this again in the longer books of Mustalah. You'll also find hadith collections which are just specifically fabricated collections, such as Al-Mawdu'at al-Kubra by Ibn al-Jawzi. You have a collection by Iraqi as well. So there are many people who, again, worked on collecting these types of ahadith and collected them in one place for people to know these ahadith are fabricated. And that is the last type of hadith that is mentioned. And he says, رحمه الله, وقد أتت كالجوهر المكنون سميتها منظومة البيقوني فوق الثلاثين بأربع أتت أقسامها تمت بخير ختمت. This is the only way we know anything about the author. He says, سميتها منظومة البيقوني. I've named it the poem of al-Bayquni. This is the only way we know his name. And Bayqun is said by some people to have been a village in Azerbaijan, and that's where his nisbah comes from. Given the general anonymity of the author, it could be that he purposely just gave himself a random nisbah so that nobody knows who he is, such that he doesn't want someone to praise him. He wants to do it for the sake of the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nothing else. There's no reason to think that. It could be his nisbah, it could be not. This is what we know about him. وسميت فوق الثلاثين بأربع أتت, and he finished this work in 34 lines, and that is all we know about the author. So somebody's asking, can you quickly summarize muttafiq and muftariq? So muttafiq and muftariq is when in the chain of narration you have a name of a narrator which he shares with somebody else. So the example I gave again, the real example is someone called Khalil ibn Ahmad. There's 6 narrators called Khalil ibn Ahmad. Some of them are weak, some of them are not. So they're muttafiq in the wording, like when you pronounce his name, Khalil ibn Ahmad, and you pronounce the other person's name, Khalil ibn Ahmad, it's muttafiq, it's congruent in the pronunciation, but it's muftariq, it's divergent in the actual reality of who the person is. So muttafiq and muftariq is when the narrators share a name, but they are different in reality. If anyone has any more questions. Somebody send me a link on using Hadith Graph. I haven't seen this before, so I would have to take a look at it, and I only have 2 minutes. So I can take a look at what this is, the website. Okay, yeah, I remember this. Yeah, this is, we shouldn't be using this. Basically, it's an algorithm which can give you a probability of the authenticity of a hadith, and you just input the narrators and it would calculate it for you. But as we said multiple times, just because the narrators are authentic, it doesn't mean the hadith is authentic. The hadith could be anomalous. The hadith could be, we could have a hidden defect. So this is useless. All this would tell you is whether the sanad is correct or not. And even then, there is issues there. You can't. So yeah, I wouldn't use this at all. I would I wouldn't recommend this even 1%. Uh, yeah, you shouldn't be using this. Wait, I think that is it for the book Kitab al-Fitan. Is the translation bad? Okay, you can ask me this after class because I would have to take a look at it. Jazakumullah khairan all for joining. Jum'ah Mubarakah. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين.